Welcome to Now Daily. I'm Robert Crawford. Here's what's happening now. Last night, a lot of division occurred in Chicago with this Trump rally. A lot of people from both sides of the fence started arguing with each other, and supposedly, according to what I'm seeing in the media right now, a group called MoveOn.org was responsible for the protests, which turned violent, and a lot of those members turned violent at the rally. So, of course, the media comes out and says all Trump supporters are fascists, there's Nazis, they're haters, they're racist, when in reality, it was the MoveOn.org group that was there and was starting the commotion. So let's look at MoveOn.org and let's see what this organization really is. If you haven't heard of MoveOn.org, they endorsed Bernie Sanders last year in 2015. And they've been funding a lot of his rallies throughout the different states. So let's take a deep look on what MoveOn.org actually is. So you could go on to their website, just go to MoveOn.org, and they'll talk about, why they're behind Bernie. Bernie's lifelong commitment to standing up to corporate and 1% interests for a fight for an economy that's fair for everyone, right? Great rhetoric. He's standing up for justice for communities facing oppression. He'll say no to permanent war. Electability. This election will hinge on turnout, and Bernie is inspiring and mobilizing the communities it'll take on to win. Putting members in the driver's seat is what MoveOn does, and a whopping 79% voted to endorse Bernie. Great. So it's pretty clear that MoveOn.org is 79%, which pretty much makes the whole organization for Bernie Sanders. They take donations, and then they have been supporting Bernie Sanders on a number of initiatives. MoveOn members in 48 states call on superdelegates to let voters decide, right? They want to get Bernie elected. And to be honest, I can see why someone can be swayed towards Bernie, because a lot of what he says is going after the issues. The Federal Reserve is a private bank. The same shareholders, although private and secret, you don't even know who it is, the government owns about 20% of the shares. The shareholders of the Federal Reserve are expected to be the four major banks. We've talked about in past episodes, and it's on nowdaily.com. Just go on nowdaily.com, search money, and we've connected all the dots, showing that through a number of subsidiaries, the major banks, all four of the major banks, probably even more than that, are owned by really the same company at the end. When you start looking at who the subsidiaries are owned by, at the very top of the pyramid is a company called Vanguard Group based in Europe. We've also proved that the majority of the media companies are also owned by these subsidiaries. So is Google, so is Facebook, so are the pharmaceuticals, so is Monsanto. So we've connected the financial dots. A major player in this game on who's controlling that financial money at the top is a man by the name of George Soros. If you haven't heard of George Soros, he was a known Nazi contributor. He's actually a Jew himself. He's a pretty old guy. I believe he's in his late 80s or 90s now. And during World War II, he actually accepted 30 ounces of silver and sold out a number of his Jewish friends that eventually got killed by the Nazis. Fast forward, this man, George Soros, is known as the front man for the Rothschild fortune. If you don't know who the Rothschilds are, people talk about the Illuminati or the Cabal, they're pretty much at the top of the list. Their net worth is somewhere between $1 trillion and $100 trillion. They really began taking power on the political spectrum back in the Battle of Waterloo. And we'll talk about that in a different video. Right now, we're just talking about MoveOn.org and how it relates to Bernie Sanders. Because it's a very hypocritical organization. Because people think that it's just being donated on. People think that it's a grassroots organization. And it's one of the main funders of Bernie Sanders. They are funding rallies. They are literally paying for the event. And then Bernie Sanders goes and speaks at the event. They're paying for the stage. They're paying for the space. They're paying for the equipment. They're paying for the staff. They're paying for all this. So is it really just done through donations at the grassroots? No. It's not. It's actually done by 3 major billionaires. Just a quick search and you can just go on Wikipedia. You can trust Wikipedia or not. You can search other sites. I've just checked them all out, so I know it's fairly much true. MoveOn.org is an American nonprofit progressive public policy advocacy group formed in 1998 in response to the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. So it sounds like they're pretty much a Democratic organization. Well, the problem is you have to look at the financial contributors. Contributors to MoveOn.org during the 2004 election cycle included financier George Soros, who gave $1.46 million, Peter B. Lewis, chief executive of Progressive Corp., who gave $500,000, and Linda Pritzker of the Hyatt Hotel family, who gave $4 million. So these major contributors, you may say, 2004 election cycle. Well, we've heard a lot of stuff about it still going on to this day. So really, the big 1%, quote unquote, even though we've talked about how the 1% is grossly false, it's only anyone in America making really over $250,000 a year. So that's not even, an upper income family. We're talking about, when people talk about the 1%, they're talking about these ultra elite that have the majority of the wealth. It's really about 6,000 people. And at the top of that, it's about 300 or so people. And George Soros is definitely one of them. So George Soros is a major contributor. We go back to, the organization being funded by Soros. Soros funded MoveOn.org, takes credit for violence in Chicago. Far-left anarchists with MoveOn.org and Bernie Sanders take credit for Chicago political mayhem. Soros backed MoveOn.org. We can go through these. Sanders very proud to get endorsed by MoveOn.org. But I just want everyone to be aware, and all we're trying to do at Now Daily, this entire show, this entire website, why I spend all this effort on it, why I have other people helping me on this, is because we're just trying to uncover the truth. We've uncovered that propaganda is huge in the media. And that our brains, our subconscious human brains, are wired. And they know how it works, and they know how to trigger this. And they're going to affect your opinions of people, policies, situations purposely when you don't even realize it. So everyone who's supporting Bernie Sanders, I can understand why you are. I can understand why you believe that he can change things. And that a lot of his speeches are talking about the major issues, like the big banks. But his policies and solutions are going to be even worse than the problem we're in now. And voting for someone like Hillary is even worse, because then you're just going to know that the political elite and their agenda is going to stay in place and probably get more totalitarian, take more individual freedoms, and go for more globalism. So both are pretty bad choices. And I'm not saying that Trump's the right choice. I disagree with probably half of his opinions. But if you're going to say that you're for Bernie Sanders, you have to be aware of what you're saying. And by saying that, there are major financial players that are funding groups, policies, advertisements on behalf of Bernie Sanders. But he has also picked up more funds through individuals than anyone else. So you have to look at both sides of the story. Do I think Bernie Sanders is bought out by MoveOn? I don't think so. I think he is just one pawn in their play. And their main king and queen on their chessboard at the political point in America is Hillary Clinton. So they're trying to do anything they can to make sure she rises on top. Now, MoveOn is doing everything in their power to divide us as American people and turn everyone against Donald Trump supporters. The media is doing everything they can to make people think that Donald Trump is a racist bigot. mainly over his comments over Muslim immigration and really just temporarily restraining them. They may be controversial comments, but if you look at the constitutional authority, the president does have authority to stop immigration for classes or countries of people migrating into the United States. So technically that's actually perfectly legal. You may not agree with it or not. He's not talking about U.S. citizens. He's not talking about putting them in internment camps. He is not the one who's built the federal emergency relocation centers that are literally internment camps that are built right here in America that are, they may be full. We don't even know, because we have to think that even when Hitler was in power, if people are going to compare Trump to Hitler, let's look at Hitler for a second. People still respected Hitler. The people of Germany still agreed with Hitler until the war was really over in 1944. For almost 10 years prior, they were locking up Jews. They were killing and exterminating Jews and blacks and all different other types of classes, and people were denying it, saying it wasn't happening. This could be happening right now with the NDAA, with the all these other things that are going on politically. We don't even really know what's happening behind the scenes. We have heard of people getting prosecuted. We have heard of people like Irwin Schiff being thrown in jail for writing a book. We have heard of this prosecution, so we don't really know because there's so much secrecy in the government. But we need to be diligent with our research. What happened in Chicago was not racist Trump supporters hitting on black people. It was paid political organizers by MoveOn.org and other groups that are paid and funded by these major elitists. Now, was that every single person involved? No. But we already know through the past what's happened in Seattle and Baltimore, and we know that $33 million from George Soros was given to a organization to do advertisements for Black Lives Matter. If you go onto the Ford or Rockefeller Foundation's websites, they're promoting Black Lives Matter. These are all elitist cabal members. So why is the cabal trying to instigate Black Lives Matter? Because they're trying to divide us. They're trying to use race to divide us. We need to look over that and say it's not going to happen. We're all Americans. We're here for the best interest of America and for individual freedoms. That's pretty much it. So do your homework. Look at what's really going on. If you disagree with me, comment below. If you have some information that I'm unaware of, comment below. Subscribe. Go to nowdaily.com. See the research we put together. I'm Robert Crawford, and this is what's happening now.